said that, like, what do you think about that person? It's like, oh yeah, they're a great person. They did this, whatever. Oh, do you know that's actually Andrew Tate? And immediately their instant, and we're gonna chat this in the following episodes, their programming just kicks in, right? It's like, it's like the Matrix, as they call it, just comes in there, and they're like, whoa. I do not agree with that statement anymore.
Well, I was laughing because I was thinking the same thing. Did you see like those protests, like all lives matter?
All lives matter.
And like all lives matter. Yes, everybody in this world is beautiful being. What on Donald Trump? Fuck that motherfucker right away. It was like, holy crap.
What are you
that
saying?
Was a quote. I wish he would die. And I'm like, you just said all lives matter. And like literally the programming clicked in like this. As soon as you saw it, it said, I thought you were going to use that one as an example. The Donald Trump
That's another example too.
Wow. It was like, so to me, here's the thing is the way I see it as like when I see the world push back, it's a trigger for me to say there's truth there. So
welcome back to the DC Talks podcast. I am your co-host, Agent 00 Owen Osinde. I'm with my main man here in the, is that Oxblood?
and I've worn this a few times, I think. I don't know. I think it's like a maroon or I don't know.
DC's jacket game is always on point. He's got the Oxblood ready to go today. You know, yo, how you doing, my guy?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right.
Yeah.
Looking forward to Halloween.
Halloween's coming up. October. The red October.
Well, we'll record. I guess I should say Thanksgiving first because we're recording this before Thanksgiving.
It's Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah. There's always some fights at Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, always, man.
Always. Somebody's got to throw down.
What are you most thankful for, DC? Because I'm not going to see you this weekend, but just
I wake up every morning. I'm thankful for. This is not a joke. I wake up in the morning before you touch your phone, all that stuff too. I pray and I say, thanks to God, I'm alive. I know that sounds funny because it's like, maybe not sound funny, but it's true, right? Like, with my brain issue last year, I come to to really respect God and be thankful for that. Mm-hmm. So, obviously thankful for that, thankful for my family, thankful for you guys, my work families, including like my girls as well, like not my kids, like Julia, Elise, Ariana. Yeah, like all of them too. I'm very thankful for. I'm really thankful for like the team we work with, my friends, family. There's so much I'm thankful for. Like I can go on and on, like, but being specific, just having a good support system. Yeah. I think being able to speak my mind here, that's kind of which has helped me. It's cathartic, right? Like I know some of the things we say on this podcast, a lot of people don't agree with, but the idea of the podcast is to get to people to think. I try to bring on guests that have a little more of a bite to them because like more of a history. We just had Jenna on the show. So if you're watching this, you see Jenna, like learning her history with that is just, it hit a little different, you know, like you don't know somebody, it's hard to judge somebody, like, especially for us when you're doing deals. And when she was a young realtor, and it was like, it's funny, you could tell she was young, but trying to help her out and stuff. And then realizing where she came from, like, wow, like that was balls. So she's a baller. Like that's amazing. It
took a lot of guts to leave your family behind and come to the city.
So I'm very thankful for people to come here and show a little of their vulnerable side.
Yeah.
That, like, again, we could talk about real estate stuff and how many deals stuff do that. People do that, but I don't know. I find that not only get so far. Like when I go on TikTok or I go on Instagram, I'm seeing the same realtors and they're kind of talking about the same topics over and over again. And some stuff I'm like, okay, that's pretty good too. And I guess, but I don't know. I think for us, we talk about real estate a lot. Like, let's talk about something different, right?
Take a pause for the cause.
And I'm thankful for you for bringing that to my attention when we started to talk about my surgery and things and how we had a spike in viewership. And it's just like, I think people wanted to hear that. So I'm thankful that that you guys pointed that out to me, and then people can also tune in and reach out to me. And I love that. I'm very thankful for that.
Also, I'll say thanks to you, DC, for being vulnerable, right? Yeah. It takes a lot of courage, a lot of strength. And to also stand behind that in the midst of like maybe some backlash or of having that strength to say certain things that might not be agreeable to other people, but you have that rock solid personality that you're not flappable. Like I say what I say and I say what I mean. And if I say this, it kills me to say it, but this is who I am. Take it or leave it.
Right. I've had we talked off air about this, about our flat earth and again, we didn't say anything about flat earth that was our conjecture. It was
Yeah.
basically from what we've seen, but people went nuts over that. I've been called crazy. Like
Exactly.
literally, are you mentally unstable? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
how can you? I've had friends from high school like saying, is this just clickbait and stuff too? And it's like, guys, I'm just presenting an alternative idea. Like, we don't really know who's telling the truth.
Exactly.
And it's funny, and it's like, well, how do you not know? Like, at the end of the day, it's all about faith, right?
Yeah.
It's like some people, like the flat earthers, will believe in their side of the story, and they're fully believe in God and what the Bible says and all that stuff. And then you have the globals that totally believe in what the scientists have said stuff too, regardless if it's like from what they've of their perspective. And both sides of like have merit. That's the foot that we were trying to bring to the point. It's like both sides have merit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but neither one will agree with each other. And it's like, man, but the backlash I got for that was, wow.
We'll definitely get into that. And one of the key things about that, as a tree of that conversation, is this idea of like censorship, right? Certain polarizing topics that, we could have comfortably been speaking about over maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. Now you're noticing a lot more platforms reduce that conversation going on online, right? Flat Earth is one of those topics. Having opposing views that, could be contradictory to what people know about either their existence, about history, even things about, biology, like men and women, religion, all these certain things. Is like the censorship has gone extremely to a level I never thought it's going to go. So,
even like, I know we're getting into this too, but even censorship on podcasts now, and
right?
Now social media is like, which makes me laugh out. That felt like, we'll talk about, I think you're going to put that in the topic. I didn't read. For sure. Today, I'm totally flying off the cuff today, guys. It was one of those things we didn't have time to review what we were talking about. So I'm at Owen's mercy. I'm at your, it's a real like a lot of the times too, I'll just kind of briefly review what you have. But today I have I'm a little censored in the sense that
I'll be
my
good
eyes,
to you, bro.
I know my eyes are folded. But so I don't know about the JT thing, but Justin Trudeau, but I was laughing when the fires were happening in BC, and he's like, well, we need to share this on social media. I'm like, dude, you banned media on social media. And that's why it's not showing on there. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
That guy makes me laugh.
What do you think about this rise in information being blocked from what we can see? So for example, even now with social media, you can't even access news on Instagram or anything like that, or even Facebook. So Facebook now, you can't even go to CP24, Global News. They can't share that news on these platforms. Why do you think this rise in blocking information has started taking over the past 3 to 4 years? It seems like past the pandemic, they really turned up the dial on that.
Doesn't it feel like we're in 1984, the book?
Yeah, we are like George Orwell. Yeah.
Yeah. If you really want to think about it, like, I don't know why the conspiracy theorists have been correct about all these other things. Like, what's to not think that this is the global agenda, right? It's, again, come at me again, like this is going to be funny, but it's like, but guys, like, why are we not allowed to have free speech like anymore? Like, we're in Canada. We are being called dictatorship from other parts of the country because of the things we're doing here. This should be news. First of all, the news that we get is bullshit anyways. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Right? Let's be honest. Like, so if you look back, and I remember the first time somebody said that, I got into conspiracy theories back when I was converting from Catholicism to Christianity. And, well, maybe from Catholicism to New Age to Christianity. And one thing I didn't realize was stuff too, was like, again, reading all the conspiracy theories, how they're all tied in with this innate battle between good and evil, between God and the devil and stuff too. And one of the things they talked about was, how they're basically brainwashing us. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? All the propaganda you guys looking at on TV, it's all owned by 5 big companies. I'm like, this is bullshit, right? So, and then you look and you're like, if you look at NBC, if you look at CNN, they're all owned by like a small amount of people. And they're like, all of their views are being shared. If you looked at the news, say 20 years ago, those reporters were allowed to talk freely. They could do exposés. That is no longer the case anymore. So censoring news media is just like fine, because all the stuff they're giving us most is BS. And look what happened during the pandemic. They just fed us all the stuff to get us riled up and to get us scared.
The numbers.
The numbers. All of a sudden, COVID, all of a sudden COVID was the same thing. And they moved on to something else. They stopped reporting the deaths. And it was just it's a tool to utilize to get the country scared and to fulfill an agenda. And I hate saying that, because I've taken the blue pill, I guess it is, and just believe that everything's all rosy, that there's no covert operations happening, there's no hidden agenda, but everything that we've seen in this world is playing out. There's like, yeah, these conspiracy theorists were right about this kind of stuff. It's sad. It's scary.
Yeah.
So the censorship about this is about control, right? So they didn't like that people were pushing out because they're putting out real news. So like, well, we'll just censor all of them. Now you won't see any news on your social media platforms. And it was like, that doesn't make any sense either, right? And the news that you're getting, now they can say, well, that's all fake news.
Yeah.
So, like buzz.
It's alternative facts.
Yeah, exactly, right?
All those terms that were like piping down on us.
Well, there was an article too, like I think it was on BuzzTron or 416, I can't remember what it was, and it was about how Justin Trudeau is like now basically going to monitor, or sorry, not Justin Trudeau, the government's going to monitor podcasts. And I remember sending it to my sister-in-law, and she's like, where's this article? I'm like, we tried to find it. We couldn't find it. We couldn't find it anywhere. And then finally found it like buried somewhere, but it was like, what was actually involved, right? But people can easily say now, it's like, if there's real truth on social media, they're like, you can't collaborate, all the fact checkers come out and say that's bullshit. So maybe that's the job is, and maybe that's the idea of, removing real news from social media is like, now you can say that's not real news.
So social media has existed over like, let's say 15 years or so.
Probably more. Well, if you look at Facebook or all that kind of stuff, it's been about 20. I got married, 15 years ago. We started using it. Yeah, so like just maybe 15.
15, right?
Under 20 years ago, yeah.
Came into prominence 2007, Facebook 2006, 2007, around that time. This stuff has existed over that long. But why now, right? That's what I always think. I'm like, why are you deciding to have this level of control now? This information, people have always known that these certain things that we talk about, people have always been talking about them, but they never really, even same thing with YouTube. You're noticing that too as well. Right now, you look at the Tate brothers, for example. Andrew Tate speaks about something that is totally not really justifiable for him to be removed from a platform. Like, think about that. You can spend time building up your platform. You have like your 8,000 followers right now. And in an instant, for them to say, we do not agree with what you are saying, and all that work you've put into your platform has just been evaporated off of one post, right? So,
well, what's so scary now is not even that post. Like, there's people getting canceled for things they said, which was acceptable 15 years ago, right? That blows my mind too, right?
Like what happened? Well, you said this a while back.
You weren't offended 15 years ago. Why are you canceling me now? Like, we've changed. I'm not the same person I was yesterday. So why are you canceling me things that happened I said 15 years ago?
Yeah. People are digging up tweets that you said a while back, and they're saying that you still believe this right now. So it limits us from being able to change and actually evolving as people, which is like the scary part as well. But one of the key things that I find about it is that it limits your freedom of speech. And it begs the question, does freedom of speech really exist?
No. Freedom of speech does not exist anymore. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It just does not exist. Like, I can't freely say and I hold back, believe it or not, from a lot of things we've said that's off air. The conversations that Owen and I have off air, there's no way we could ever publish them. There's just no way. There's some of the things, the ideas and the theories we talk about, we would be canceled so fast. And this is none of it's even racist or anything to do with sexuality. It's just like some of the things we believe, we know we'd be canceled like this. And it's just because the world has changed and everyone's so sensitive about some stuff that we can't even talk. It's weird. We can't even talk about stuff. And it's like, well, even if we talk about people being too sensitive, we can get canceled. It's like, so where's the freedom of speech? I can't even express that, without hurting. The idea is not to hurt somebody else's feelings or something, but to express that to somebody and just be like, and just say something like that. And I'm like, you get canceled because you're fear. Like, so we always hold back. Like, we always have to cross our P's and the Q's when it comes to this, right? So so I don't think there really is a lot of freedom. So we toe the line. Like, look what happened to the conspiracy theory stuff that we talk about, which again, we're going to continue to do that. If you guys don't know, we do 4 episodes in one day we record, and then one of them is usually a conspiracy stuff or like
some deep thought
topic.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. And it's funny because we throw those in there because we want people to think without virtually saying anything. Right? We're kind of like quoting what people say, but we're just kind of bringing to light what people say. But even that stuff almost gets you canceled.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not even our own thoughts.
Yeah. It's like thoughts that already exist. But the fact that you actually have the audacity to utter that out of your mouth is like, now you are the problem.
Right.
Right. So it feels like there's this force that is out there that is ushering us to think uniformly. Like, is it uniformly? Yeah. In a uniform manner.
Yeah.
Right. The news is the same. The same news that you're watching is the news everybody else is watching.
You're talking about that one. Remember that one clip was going through? There was like 8 or 9 stations.
Yes.
And they had the same script.
They had the same script, man, woman, all the things.
And all the same thing. And went through all of the social media. If that doesn't tell you that the whole news is propaganda, I don't know what it is. Like, they're trying to get you to think one certain way. And that's all the news does to you anyway. I'm sorry, that's not freedom of even news, for crying out loud. You know, there was a good, have you ever read the book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman? Did I talk to you about this before?
You mentioned it faintly, but I never read it.
So he talks about he was working for he was working for the U.S. government, and it's basically how to manipulate other countries and basically give them power of just paying off a lot of their leaders. So one of the reasons why Saddam Hussein was always on their enemies, he would never pay out, so they'd either kill some of the leaders. And I think he touched too on some of the stuff that was in propaganda and what's in the news. And everybody knows about that. And or if you go to the Nazi Germany, how did they get people, like, they didn't understand how they got everybody on side of the Nazis. Well, they started playing movies and stuff that are constantly in your face about how the Jews were terrible people. And it was all this propaganda. Little by little, these people they start to believe it. And if you watch it enough times, well, that's all the news was doing to us too. They had, even if you look at the right or left, they have a certain agenda and they'll continue to push it. And that's what our news is. So is that freedom? No, because if you're working for a leftist paper and you want to write something that's conservative, well, they won't let you publish that. Does that make sense? Even though it's actual news?
Yeah. Where do you think the fear of them, we mentioned that control is one of the big things that they want to have over us, right? So social media, news, if they gave us that control to post whatever we want, to say what we want, what do you think they see as a big, like, implosion happening if they give people that ability to do that? Like, what do you think is going to happen in your opinion?
Well, it's obviously not sex. They don't care about that because they don't. We were talking about this the other day. I was talking to some other girls. It's funny, like, you'll be on Facebook and they'll say, like, an ad will pop up, which is like, oh, grow your penis size. They'll show like full on naked men and stuff too, like with the women and stuff too. And I'm like, and I'm reporting. I'm like, what the hell is this on my feed for? And I'm talking to other girls like, oh my God, I'm seeing that too. And it's like, so they obviously don't care. If you go on TikTok, there's nude girls all the time. Not TikTok, sorry, on Instagram.
On the
like literally, there's one. I think we talked to this one nurse, and she shows her boobies all the time. Like, and all her videos are still there.
Yeah.
It's a quick glimpse, but you can pause it and stuff too. I'm like, is this real? Like, can you actually do? So they don't care about that. What their end goal is, they don't. So don't kid yourself. It's not about sex. It's not, has nothing to do with that. It's all about, like, thinking for yourself. It's like going against what the norm or whatever the powers that be, going against their agenda.
Exactly.
I think that's the problem they have, right? Now, granted, you have to have some sort of guidelines. Like, no, I don't want to see naked children, or I don't want to see any naked people. I'm sorry, online. I'm sorry for the guys out there enjoying their Instagram for that.
Even as good as they look, it's so overstimulating.
Yeah, it is. It is. I actually don't go on Instagram very often anymore because I'm more on TikTok, because there's more stories and stuff that aligns with more of my soul, I guess.
Julia's posting everything for you now too, right?
Yeah. So I'll go on, like, at night. I'll go on. I'll check my Instagram. So if I get a message here, that I will answer my messages on too. But I'm not on. If you saw how many times we post stuff too, I create the posts and stuff, and Julia will post them for me. Because it would just take up too much of your time.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Instagram is starting to piss me off. Sorry for those Instagram.
And you can't even leave now because your whole business is on Instagram.
No, I like it. I like Instagram for the business part of it too, but it just sometimes it's like when they're trying to push something for you, like if you go to my For You page and stuff too, the stuff that they're pushing is like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to push like cats and like trying to get a more wholesome stuff.
Yeah.
And you just, all of a sudden you'll have a pad. I'm like, oh, I think it's a friend. I'll click on it. I'm like, oh my God. And then she's half naked. And I was like, holy shit. And the next thing you know, all of your For You page is filled with that.
Yeah.
It pisses me off, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like it's to the point sometimes like I feel bad for like we can't even open her phone in public. Sometimes I have to be careful. Like, and I deleted like a whole bunch of people off of my Instagram because it's like as those ones like, you know, like they were following me. Okay, follow. And you realize okay, maybe it's the people you're following. So I cleaned up to 1,200 people and it's like, these are people I know. And it still bothers me. So it's like, what agenda are you pushing here then too? Are you distracting me from? So that's why I think the sex thing is on social media is not their agenda. They're not censoring that. They allow it to happen more and more.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, why is that? Is it a distraction? Is it the devil?
Is it the devil? It might be.
It might be because it's like, so I find that when I look at Instagram too, I'm getting more impure thoughts of like, you know, just, you know, you get certain of the flesh, you know, certain, like, you know, certain tendencies. I'm saying so much, but when I'm on TikTok, it's the opposite. I feel like a lot of the Christian stuff pops up, a lot of the preacher stuff pops up, the motivational stuff, the stuff that I actually find engaging. I'll have a cigar outside and I'll watch TikTok for hours. I'm like, oh shit, I got to go inside because I've, you know, because Natalie doesn't like, oh, well, sit beside her. Most guys don't like, will sit on their phone. But I like listening to the stories, and she's more trying to watch a show, and of course distracting her by watching all the TikToks and you know talking about God and like, you know, prayers. And like I kind of like that stuff too because I'm getting more and more involved into that stuff, and because you want to fill your minds with positive things, right? And there's so many negative things in this world. But I just find I'm not on Instagram very often because I just feel dirty afterwards. So why are they censoring but the God stuff too? I don't ever see on Instagram. I'm following the same people. Why is that not on Instagram? Is it because one is an American company, one's a Chinese company? They can't convert. TikTok's Chinese, right?
Yeah. And
they can't control all like the algorithms, all that kind of stuff too, but they can push an agenda on Instagram. Are they trying to push sex and vanity and, you know, all the stuff that which is basically tying you into the needs of the flesh? If you look at, I talked about this in one of my videos, it was like, look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So they're fulfilling all the needs, but they're keeping you there. They're not letting you get to which is the peak of the pyramid. Spiritual.
Yeah, spiritual, yeah.
That's your spiritual need.
Self-actualization.
There you go.
Exactly.
They're doing that on purpose. This is where my brain goes, right? I was thinking about this today. And again, there's nothing I can do to prove this. This is my conjecture. This is something I'm actually saying. So if you want to come at me, this is something I'm thinking. I'm thinking that because of that, they are trying to push an agenda because you don't get a lot of prayer thing on Instagram, even though I've looked at all my, like a lot of my prayer stuff is on my TikTok.
Yeah.
Well, why is that? And if your phone's listening to you, if I'm watching a lot of on Instagram, on TikTok, well, why which we all know your phone's listening. Why is my Instagram fighting against that? It's complete opposite. Why is that?
They want to keep you brain dead. They want to keep you spiritually drained, right? And that's what I'm seeing as well too. Like it's all like a collective plan. And this even goes with when I was going with the Tate brothers, they're trying to reignite that essence of strength, being a man of duty, doing all those things and giving power to men back and actually, hey, work out, work hard, take care of your family. But
how dare you?
How dare you? How dare you tell men to do these certain things?
Well, I was watching the other thing the other day. It's like they've talked about how in our society, the men's testes have actually decreased.
Yeah. Right.
How they're feminizing us. They don't want us to kind of like, well, what does this matter? And then this is conspiracy. So this is a conspiracy theory, but the testes was not, it was actual. So the conspiracy theorist was talking about how the global agenda is to remove the masculinity out of culture, including your physical testes and making men more feminized. Why do you do that? Well, that means if you have no real men, no one could push back any agenda they push later on.
There's no fighters.
There's no fighters.
There's no fighters.
And that's why people like Tate, which were fighters, misogynistic. You might think he's an asshole, you know, all that kind of stuff too. But if you're in a fight, I'm calling both of those guys.
Calling those guys.
I'm
They're
one of those
jacked,
guys.
tall. Everything.
I'm not calling Justin Trudeau and all those little freaking army of those little, like, I'm just not.
The Skittles people.
Yeah.
The
I
rainbows.
swear to God. Like, I want to fight. I'm going to pick the burliest guys I know. I want to go in there. I want to fight. I don't have to like sit like them break a nail and then worry about it. You know what I mean? Like, let's be honest. So but I like in the Americas how they're pushing back. Like some of their songs, their country songs are coming out through.
Jason Aldean.
I love Jason Aldean. Great bar, by the way. We were in Nashville. His bar is awesome, by the way. Yeah, it's fucking like 4 floors and stuff too. Great patio. It's insane. All of Nashville is fantastic. I can't wait to go back, visit my buddy Strauss. So it's like, but yeah, the songs were all there too. Like the book, everything was like the top of the list is against the agenda. And it's like, if you're actually in the States too, and you talk about who their president really is, a lot of people don't like to admit that Trump was their president, their choice. It's like, because they've been almost bullied into by thinking that he's, the devil, right?
Yeah.
It's so funny. So there's even censorship that way. Like he's been saying for years and years and years that they're at a witch hunt. And when people show the humanity of Trump, it's like, if I'm saying it now, people are going to think, well, I'm a Trump supporter. I'm not. I'm just saying, you got to look at both sides, right? You look at Trump and he's saying like, well, there's some things where he's crying, like helping people out. Sure, he was. Listen, Trump is who he is, right? Yeah. The whole thing, grabbing the pee and all that kind of stuff too. And like, he's an asshole. He's a misogynist. We know that, but he did well for the country.
Yeah.
But you look at Biden and like stuff like, but they come. He said racist as he hasn't been canceled. Why is that?
If you don't vote for me, you're not black.
Like literally, like literally the things that he said, or him like brushing little girls' hair and all.
Yeah, kissing
like
them.
If he was, if Trump did any of that stuff, he would have been canceled so fast. And it's like, well,
done.
why is that, right? Why is that? And again, we're not Americans. We're just like, we're on the outside looking in. We're just saying like, this doesn't make any sense, right? It just with an open mind, right? And I'm like, I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal of the U.S. I don't like, you just want to see, but it just sometimes you scratch your head. It's like, how is this even possible? And somebody actually went as far as calling, and they censored this too, like talking about censorship, how Biden's actually more of a dictator. Well, why? And they Tyrant went through all of the tyrant things that they do. And he's like, oh, it was Robert Kiyosaki from Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
And I was interested because he went through, he's like, well, this is why he's a tyrant. And but like he fulfills, so Biden fulfills all of these criteria. I'm surprised he hasn't got canceled for this yet. And one of the things he was saying to you, he's like, look, his whole agenda was to get rid of the middle class. And I said this too because during COVID. And he goes, look at this. One of his first jobs of his agenda was to remove the pipeline. Remember, we had the pipeline going from Canada to Mexico.
Yes.
Which was going to save like taxpayers have like, I don't know, not millions, but save us tons of money. Mm-hmm. And it was like $30 a barrel, I think, at the time. It's gone up to $130. It's gone up $100 since when he canceled it. So now we're relying on oil. Why is our inflation price so high right now? What is the biggest contributing factor of our inflation?
Are you asking me?
Oil.
Okay.
Yeah. Oil.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oil. We went down to 2.3 percent when our inflation was down to 2.3. I think it was in June. The two culprits for that to help bring down oil price and the telecom. Telecom went down 15 down because there was a merger. So that month compared year over year, it went down. And but oil. And then when it went back up, well, the oil prices went back up. Yeah.
So, oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's a good little economic lesson there. Yeah.
We have no control over that. So it's funny when they look at it all. It's all funny how we look at the inflation rates and what they use as an excuse to increase our rates and stuff too. That's a totally different story.
You know what I just noticed there, DC? Like when I asked you something, and I noticed this, a lot of people do it. And I don't think you're consciously trying to do it, but it's a subconscious behavior that I think you've now adopted.
What's that? When
you said the thing about Trump, right? You added a qualifier in there.
You have to.
You added a qualifier, and you just did. It's crazy. We're talking about this conversation right now, and you, as much as we are very contrarian in our beliefs, we have so been. Our behavior has been now made Now we got to add qualifiers in every, and I don't even think you noticed it, which is the most interesting part.
No, I'm pretty aware of it.
You are, okay.
I'm aware of it because, and I have to say thing about Andrew Tate, because I have my wife in my shoulders, and that she's always pushing back at things I say. So when I was saying to her, when I was talking to some of my friends in the US while Trump was president, they're like, we've had the best economic years in our life. And I would say that to Natalie, and she's like, well, like, and she'd always push back, well, he's this and this. And I'm like, you're talking about a character. Look what he's doing, right? So when I say that, I'm like, when I've talked to people and they love what Trump did, I almost get like, I've had so much backlash from me saying that. Now I have to qualify it. And I say, listen, that's like, I don't think he's a great man. Right? I don't by any stretch of the imagination. There are some times he's done some great things and he's been humble and all, but he's also done some bad things too. So we almost have to qualify it. And we're censored that way too. If I just went out and said, I love Trump, well, that changes your mind on me. Like that could affect my business. That could affect my life. That could affect everything. So I always have to qualify now. Just say, hey, listen, this is, and I'm not voting anyway. So what does it matter, right?
Yeah.
But from things I've seen, I'm just kind of scratching my head sometimes, and I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. So in order for people not to jump on you, you qualify them.
But isn't that wrong for us to do that, where you have to have an allegiance to one side?
But yeah, of course. Well, listen. What did Jesus say too? And he's like,
what did he say?
You have to be either hot or cold, right? Okay. Those are lukewarm. I will spew you out, right? Right? Because back in those days, he was talking about the salt water. So if it was cold, it was digestible. Cold or hot, digestible. But it was a parable for them to understand what he was saying. He goes, so the people are lukewarm towards Jesus and stuff too. He'll still spill you out. Like those are the ones that they go to church, but they're still like adulterers and their idolatry and doing all that. So they're talking on both sides of their mouth. So
you can't be half pregnant.
Exactly. Right. So in this kind of situation, I am being that. Listen, I'm talking to both sides of my mouth for a reason, right? Because you have to placate both sides, right? Because otherwise people don't listen to you. But they'll label you. But is that right or wrong to do that? It's totally wrong.
Yeah. So why do we allow it?
Because I personally don't know how I feel. Okay, because there are certain things about Trump that I don't like. So I qualify to myself in my brain. There's certain things about Andrew Tate I don't like. Yeah. But if I tell you, if I quote something from either Trump or Andrew Tate, and they're like, oh, you must be a Trump supporter. Oh, you must be Tate. I'm like, whoa, I can't quote from him. When we talk about, even what's his name? Peterson,
Jordan Peterson.
There's a lot of things Jordan Peterson says, which I agree with. And they talk to my wife, well, what about this? Well, and they're like, oh my God, there's always a qualifier. You know what I mean? Like there's always somebody going to say like, nobody's perfect. Listen, you can say that you like David Chinelli, but there's going to be some things I'm saying, but he's a flat earther or he's a globalist. He thinks the world's a globe. But there's like, then you almost have to start like, well, I don't always agree with what David says. Right? Yeah. That might happen to you when you talk about me too. Like I say what I say. But now I'm just kind of like, it's funny because it's like when it comes to Trump or Andrew Tate, sometimes you have to be like guarded a little bit, right?
So it's a fear of judgment.
Yeah. I don't think people care that I don't like Justin Trudeau. I'm in the country. I've seen what he's done. I've heard his hand. I've seen the mistakes he's made. And his unapologetic rhetoric. Anytime you ask a question, like, oh, he doesn't ever answer a question. Like, oh, no politicians do. Like, this guy never answers a question. He's been, brought to, apparently, did you see this? That apparently him and Sophie were actually on house arrest, and they showed like because they were brought to court and no one ever saw that what happened. No way. So there's this one person, she's like, look, I couldn't really see, but it looked like on each of their legs, they're trying to cover when you have in your house arrest, those little badges on, what do they call them? The squares. What do they call them?
It's like a meter. Like it's like a radius.
On your ankle, on the anklet, wwhatever you have, the anklet bracelet. That's what it is. So you can't go from your house and stuff too. And it was like, it was interesting. Anyway, so that might be the only justice we have, but nobody knows about that stuff too. So yeah, it's for him. Like, I don't care if anything's, I don't care if you're liberal. I have friends of mine who are liberal. We talk about my sister-in-law who's liberal. I have friends and stuff too. And I'm like, that's your opinion. I'm like, at least there I know where I stand. I live in the country. I could say that. I can't say the same thing about the US. I'm sorry. I don't live in that country. So and the news and stuff, it isn't always revolving around the two of them. Whereas if you go in the States, you can watch CNN and like, well, I guess we can watch Fox here too. but there's more people involved. You hear more stuff too. So I can't, as an outsider, I will continue to qualify that. How about that? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. I just wanted to see your thought on that, right?
Yeah. But, well, it's like, I can't judge on even like Saddam Hussein back in the day, or I can like, from what we've seen, like he wasn't a good man. We know that. But some of it, I don't know if some of his people actually liked him or not. I don't know how he ran the country. I don't know if people, because I don't know if the propaganda was on their side, which side was propaganda. We don't know that. So we only go with what was the U.S. said about him. But then you read the books like An Economic Hitman, where like he was a bad man, but not for the reasons why you think, So like, he was, killing people, torturing people too, but he was actually helping his people too. I'm like, what? Like this guy, of course, that's why he was in power. But again, we can't qualify that. Like I can't say this about Saddam Hussein because he's dead now, because say, well, he was a bad man. Yeah. But did he do good? Well, maybe people around think so. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's crazy how we do this, because we're very rational beings as human beings, right? We know what's right. We know what's wrong. You can say, I should be able to like look at what you're saying and be able to like decipher the good from the bad.
Right.
One thing you said about Nat is that you brought up certain things, and she's like, she immediately went into like a certain way of thing, right? But Nat is a educated lady.
For those who don't know, Nat is my wife.
Nat Billanchinelli. Shout out her, right? Spaces Corner. Go check them out. She is
Stagers Corner, Spaces Collective, and Stagers Corner. So we do once a week. We do a Stagers Corner on my Instagram.
Stages, Thanks for correcting me.
That's okay. Because you mix them both together.
I was trying to like mash them together, but I think the audience by now knows who it is. But what I'm trying to say, DC, is this, right? We are rational beings. As smart as we are, we have that allegiance towards a certain extreme end. And there's actually one example. This guy went around the city, and back to the Tate example, she was asking them, read this quote to me, right? What do you think about that? It's like, wow, what a beautiful thing to say, right? So these are all positive remarks.
This one too. Yeah.
Then they went into the second part. It's like, oh, do you know who said that? Like, what do you think about that person? It's like, oh yeah, they're a great person. They did this, whatever. Oh, do you know that's actually Andrew Tate? And immediately their instant, and we're gonna chat this in the following episodes, their programming just kicks in, right? It's like, it's like the Matrix, as they call it, just comes in there. And they're like, whoa. I do not agree with that statement anymore.
Well, I was laughing because I was thinking the same thing. Did you see like those protests, like all lives matter?
All lives matter.
And like all lives matter. Yes, everybody in this world is beautiful being. What about Donald Trump? Fuck that motherfucker right away. It was like, holy crap.
What are you
that
saying?
Was so cool. I wish he would die. And I'm like, you just said all lives matter. And like literally the programming clicked in like this. As soon as you saw it said, I thought you were going to use that one as an example. The Donald Trump.
That's another example too.
Wow. It was like, so to me, here's the thing, is the way I see it as like, when I see the world push back, it's a trigger for me to say there's truth there. Yeah. So when we talked about, again, flat earther and the globe, I know we keep talking about that because this is the most recent stuff. Yeah. When people are pushing back to me, and it's like, because again, we're trying to figure out the truth too. Like now, when people are as hard pushing back to me, they're saying about they're globalists and like all this other shit, and I'm like, it gave actually credence to the flat earth because people hated it so much. I was like, So to me, it does the opposite reaction. Yeah. When you hate Andrew Tate so much, or you hate Donald Trump so much, or you hate, I don't know, anybody else so much, it's like, it kind of triggers something like maybe there's something there that I'm not seeing that. Yeah. Why they hate him so much is like maybe there's some truth that they don't like to see. And even they regurgitate the same words, right? The same misogynist. They say this word a lot. Racist, misogynist. Yeah.
Those racist. DC, everything these days is racist. Oh, yeah. Everything is racist, right? Everything. And people say, oh, and aren't you offended? Like that's racist. I'm like, I'm Black. I don't find that. Why are you telling me that's racist? Right?
Because you're not smart enough to know what's racist is. That's I forget the comedian that said, like, was it Dave Chappelle? Was he was saying that to him? He's like, and he's laughing. He's like, I know one thing, or maybe it wasn't Chappelle, it was another guy, but they were saying like, they hate like the white women saying like how everyone's laughing and looking, they have this disgust look on their face. I'm like, are you not smart enough to know that that's, racist? And it's like, and I'm like, he's making fun of me, like I'm okay with that. And it's, I don't know. I also think I think everyone's just we've said this before, it's just too sensitive. So I don't know, this cancel culture, this cancel censorship, everything just seems like you can't do anything anymore.
You can't.
Like we were watching, we were talking with my buddy that is a client too. I sold his house and he's moved, and then he came to visit us, and he's got a 4-year-old, and he introduced him to Austin Powers, the first two, and he's like, oh my God, he goes, wasn't even that long ago though. Austin Powers, he goes, those could never be made today.
Yeah.
All the funny movies we had back in the day, none of them could be made today.
Even the comedians and everything.
Oh yeah, they'd all be canceled.
Canceled, so bro. And you know, even thing, it's like this idea that they're trying to censor everything so they can remove us from harm's way. Right?
Yeah, it's not the real reason.
That's gonna, the appearance of that image or that video or that thought some way causes psychic harm to someone who actually sees it. There's this idea that they're trying to protect us, but when have they ever really cared about protecting us?
So do you see the new stat coming out now? You're not supposed to yell at your children because it's considered child abuse.
You can't
even yell at your children. Like it's the same as abusing your child. Like, well, yeah, there's some people that yell at their children the wrong way.
Yeah.
But, like you should be able to raise your voice, say, "Hey, don't do that."
Got to be stern.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's child abuse now. I'm like, how far are we going with this censor stuff? Like now I say to my children, okay, Johnny, this was wrong. And that's what the asshole kids are coming out now too. Like I think they're even trying to censor parents now.
Man, everything, even when it has to do with like the DEI stuff that comes through, like what you can say to certain groups of people, like asking someone what they do for work is now racist, right?
How's that racist?
Like, because apparently like there's a political, well, not political, but certain groups and backgrounds, they're assumed to be doing certain things. So if you see a black guy do certain things, something like looking good. So if a black guy was wearing what you're wearing, let's say they couldn't see your shorts, you ask them, that's racist, right? Asking someone about like their family, oh, are you married? That's so they have these terms now which are called microaggressions. Microaggressions.
I heard praying is a microaggression. You say amen instead of a women or something like that. I'm like, how is praying a micro? Like
it's a microaggression. So you see how there's a lot of like misguidance even with teaching kids math now.
I think that people with mental disabilities have taken over the podium. People were actually placating to too many of them. What I'm saying is like, I think people with mental disabilities should be treated.
Should be treated. Yeah. We shouldn't give in to them because it's like, well, your reality, we shouldn't give them into their alternate reality. They need help. Mm-hmm. I don't understand. Like, I have to change my perception because you feel a certain way. Yeah. And that's a mental disability, right? Yeah. And I'm not talking about like people's orientation or all that kind of, I'm just talking to people in general. Like, so you can't like, I've heard of like other things where the person was mentally ill and it was like, no, you can't say that to them. Say something like, why? It was like, well, that'll trigger them. Yeah, it's a trigger.
But it's like, but I can't even say that the floor is like, the grass is green. No, that's a trigger. I'm like,
you see, you're not going to make them feel safe. Yeah, they're not safe when you say those words.
So what I think is going to happen, and then maybe we should wrapping up this one too, because we're getting long on this one. I think.
Yeah. I was looking at the clock. I'm like, we're getting.
What I think is going to happen is this: is like I think eventually we're going to get so bad that you can't do anything. That people are just going to revolt and it's going to revert back to like how strong, like to the opposite, as opposed to being censored, being totally cold.
But the thing about that is like hopefully the people who are meant to revolt, which is us as guys, it's gonna take years. And I think the way they're grooming the children, the boys, I don't even think they'll have the strength of the balls, as you said, they're shrunk now. Like there's no
70% smaller, something like that.
Smaller. Wow. How are they gonna fight back now? They're just gonna like yield.
How do they do that measurement, by the way? Sorry.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be that guy measuring balls for a living. That's it.
Balls. They can't even bench.
They're smaller.
They're smaller.
Sorry.
Oh man. But yeah, so like I don't know if they'll have enough strength to revolt DC. Like that's the crazy part. You know what I'm saying? But
or the guidance know that they need to revolt, right?
Yeah.
And if what happens is in a society, especially this kind of, if somebody's too strong, what they do, they isolate them and they break them down and to assimilate them.
Yeah.
So even if it is somebody strong enough, if other people see what they've done to the stronger person, they don't even need to have any abuse done to them. They will assimilate faster. It's kind of scary.
As we work towards wrapping up, David Chinelli, how can people get better at still being authentic, but not yielding to like the political correctness of.
Yeah. Well, I think you still need to be you, right? So at the end of the time, but the idea is choose your words carefully, right? Because if you come off very strong and stuff too, and it just like, I'm not saying you have to like, not everybody needs to love you, but if you stick with your conviction stuff too, it'll work out right for you. I think that's it. But if you're just trying to be mean and just trying to like, the reason why Andrew Tate doesn't work, some of the stuff he says was for shock value. Mm-hmm. And they'll take the shock value out of context and they'll just paint you with that brush that you're, oh, that's exactly who you are. He says a lot of smart things, but people only take the things out of context. So be careful, choose your words, be confident in what you're saying, but don't do things for shock value, because then that's all people remember.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So be careful of that.
Yeah. 100%. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was episode 42 of the DC Talks podcast. Let us know what you think about this whole censorship thing happening, right? Are we going too far with it? Is there an end time with it? And what do you think about now? Even our podcasts are going to be censored now. Like we're going to have to register the shows with the government to make sure that we're saying the same thing and we're being Canadian in our content, right? For us to get views. But let us know. Hope you're having a great week so far. I know it's the start of the week, but we'll talk to you soon. Stay blessed, stay healthy, and stay prayed up.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Peace out, everyone.